Hello everyone! I'm back with part 2 of my first Hearthstone video, and it's a big one, as you can see, reviewing cards and how classes will sit in the meta in the new Journey to Un'Goro set. Now, disclaimer, these are my opinions, and I didn't watch tons of streamer reviews like I usually do, so that my opinions could be my own. If you disagree with them, that's fine, but hopefully my take gives you some useful take on these cards that might help you in future deck building. Last time I reviewed Druid, Hunter, and Mage, and I'm going to jump right back into it with my three favorite classes. Whoops. Starting with Paladin. First quest, The Last Kaleidosaur. I don't think public opinion has ever shifted so heavily on this one, changing from, oh, this seems really hard to set up and kind of underwhelming, and then after the final card reveal when they actually saw Galvadon in action, holy crap, this will define the meta forever, the reward is so broken! Whereas the real answer is probably somewhere in the middle. If you cast 6 spells on minions, which is a tall order, you get Galvadon. Let's see. Battlecry. Adapt 5 times on a 5-mana 5/5 beast. The adapts you're probably looking for are +3 attack, Wind Fury, Stealth, and +1/+1 to set up a 1-turn kill. Because you get a Wind Fury, the Stealth, they can't interact with it, and then like, pow, pow! Or, if you're fighting a very aggressive deck, you can shut them down getting +3 health, +1/+1, untargetable by spells, and taunt, some combination of that, to completely shut down, like, Pyro Warrior, because that is definitely still going to be a thing, I think? It's an amazing card, but how hard is this quest to do? Well, let's talk about it. The cards you can use to complete the quest are... I could open these in other tabs, but this is going to be a long video already, so just bear with me. Forbidden Healing, which you don't really want to use on a minion. Blessing of Might, which you can use to make some nice trades. Blessing of Wisdom, which is technically a cycle card, so it cycles itself, but there was a reason it wasn't used in previous decks. There might be enough reason to use it now, though. Divine Strength, which was a pretty good card that never really found a deck that fit it, and this might be it. Silver Moon Portal, another okay buff, gives you another thing to buff. Blessed Champion, which... honestly, you don't really want to use it to complete the quest, but if you could put it on a Stealth Galvadon, that would be some ridiculous damage. So you might just use it as like a desperation finish to the quest, and then try to have it for Galvadon, run it as one, or not run it at all, which is more likely. Lay on Hands, which you really don't want to use on a minion, and Blessing of Kings, which is fantastic, and you will probably run 2 in your little buff Paladin deck here. And the new Un'Goro cards, which I'll talk about soon. None of these except Blessing of Kings were like especially common or used or pretty good, but they might find a place now. And you need to get this dinosaur, and you want to get it fast, so like more buffs the merrier. If you find out ways to do it consistently while not sacrificing tempo, it's going to be a strong deck. And if this deck is strong enough, get ready to see a lot of Equality, a lot of Devolve, and a lot of Deadly Shot, because the reward is really good. And next, we have another card that can be amazing in the right deck, Sunkeeper Tarim. If you have a 6-mana, 3/7 taunt, Battlecry, set all other minions' attack and health to 3. Now this card is really cool. If you have a 1/1, and they have a 12/12, and you play this card, poof, Pineapple Pen. If you have 5 1/1s and they have a 12/12, you turned a huge deficit on board into a huge board swing. That's pretty cool. If you don't have minions on the board already, this card is not too great, but it can still weaken Ysera for True Silver, or turn a gigantic Jade board into something much more manageable. And a 3/7 body, with taunt especially, isn't awful, considering when everyone else is a 3/3, 3 minions have to trade in, and its bulk is around as much as a Boulder Fist Ogre making the same trades. And that's an okay 6-drop. Not including taunt, not including the effect, so this card is great. I love the design, and this will definitely see play, but it will take some thought in order to get full value. Dino Size is next. For 8 mana, you can turn someone into a 10/10. With hero power on turn 10, it would be a 10 mana 10/10, which is slow and also bad. But if they fail to remove a 1/1 from the previous turn, you get a charge minion, and you could punch them in the face for 10, or you get a nice trade right away. Both kinda cool. This also sets up the quest, but not very quickly. Like, the earliest it would set up would be turn 8, so that's not... I wouldn't use it for that. Interesting synergy note, which probably isn't good, but it's just a fun thing to think about. You can Curator to draw Stone Tusk Boar, and then Dino Size it to charge for 10 as kind of a finisher. Or, you can use it with Sunkeeper Tarim as free hard removal. Kinda neat, but still not worth it in my opinion. I don't like Dino Size, but feel free to prove me wrong. I want to see Paladin succeed, and that would make some weird decks if Dino Size wasn't a deck. Next card is Primal Fin Champion, right here. 2 mana, 1/2 Murloc. Death Rattle, return any spells you cast on this minion to your hand. Now this is kind of cool, and it's kind of weird. So I'm not sure what to think of it. The Murloc tag isn't too big a deal, since this card doesn't have exceptional synergy with Finja, nor does it do much for tempo, even with buffs on other Murlocs, and Murloc Knight won't be around in Standard to pull this little guy out of the deck. I mean, out of the ether that is randomly generated cards. However, if you pump Primal Fin Champion full of spells, you draw them back, so they're essentially free spells, and this card is essentially a 1/2 draw cards. At least 2 cards if you save up your combo, which is nice. And those spells are all going towards the Paladin quest a second time, so seems strong enough just for that to run Blessing of Might, Blessing of Wisdom, Divine Strength. This card is weak to Hex and Devolve, but nearly everything in Paladin is, so you're just going to have to deal with it. Will probably be included in the quest deck. I'm not sure about any other decks, though. Next up is Light Fused Stegodon. Let's scroll down a bit. Battlecry. 4 mana, 3/4 Beast, Battlecry, adapt your Silver Hand Recruits. So there's a few ways to judge this card. It's almost a Quartermaster, costs 1 less, and can be extremely powerful when you untap a lot of little dudes, then you play this. If you play Recruits in this on the same turn, almost all the adapts become really bad except for +1/+1, so you don't want that. But for Silver Hand Recruits that can attack, +3 attack's really good, Poisonous is really good, +1/+1 is really good, and if you hit 2 of them for that, that's really good value. So how reliably can you get Silver Hand Recruits to stick around for a turn? Not very well, to be honest. With the threat of buffs, this card, and the quest, they'll be looking to clear swarms of recruits. And Maelstrom Portal, Fan of Knives, Swipe, Assorted Mage Spells, Pings, they will all be waiting. And Patches, and Pirates, and Malchazar's Imp, and Knife Juggler. Yeah, I don't see this card working, but I hope to be proven wrong. After all, Midrange Paladin, in its previous incarnation, was my favorite deck during League of Explorers. With the loss of Justicar, Murloc Knight, Silverhand Regent, and the very long-gone Muster for Battle and Quartermaster, I don't think there's enough support left for Silverhand Recruits to make that a viable archetype, in my opinion, even with the new cards. And here's a really cool card next, Spike Ridge Steed. It is a huge buff spell. For 6 mana, you give a minion 2/6 and Taunt, and when it dies, you summon another 2/6 with Taunt, the Stegodon. That is 4/12 of stats for 6, albeit on a delay. I love it. It's actually a strong play with the hero power on 8 too, since it doesn't throw all your eggs into one basket in case they use hard removal, and against face decks that leave minions around, this will punish them extra hard because they commonly don't run as much hard removal. Though expect Pirate Warrior to run a few executes now because there's going to be a lot of big taunts. What with the Tar guys, this. Anyway, moving on. Actually, execute doesn't really work on this too well. You get another taunt coming afterwards, so yeah, this is great. It's awesome on Primal Fin Champion because you get this card again, which is like 24 health that Pirate Warrior has to run through. That is way too much. I hope this card puts in work. It depends entirely on how many hexes you see. And now, one of the 2 new Silverhand cards, Vine Cleaver. A 7-mana weapon, 4/3 of the stats, and every time you attack, you summon 2 1/1 Silverhand Recruits. This is the support for Light Fused Stegodon, but I don't like it. Considering that Pirate Warrior is losing very few cards from last expansion, we're still bound to see some weapon removal here and there, and this card is annihilated by Ooze. Like, you lose a ton of value. 2 1/1s and 4 attack aren't very threatening if you only get 1 attack off, compared to other 7-drops for sure. And it's not like Paladin's known for being a head-on tempo. It's been a control deck for, like, the last 2 or 3 seasons, at least. I'd rather run True Silver Champion. I mean, of course you would, because things on turn 4 actually have turn 4 HP, whereas on turn 7 you might be running into a 5-mana 8/8 or a 6/6 Jade Golem, and this trades horribly into that. This card will probably be bad, and the combo with Light Fused Stegodon, though tempting, doesn't really save it. And now, a really cool card, Adaptation. 1 mana, adapt your minion. Another great combo with Primal Fin Champion. If you put can't target spells on it after you've put the rest of your buffs on this guy, it renders it immune to Hex. And Stealth not only gets it away from Hex, but it lets you set up buffs for next turn. You trade in, you get all the buffs back, ba-boom, value. And it's a pretty powerful spell for 1 mana not on that guy. This card is sure to be included in Quest Paladin, maybe even on some aggressive Paladin list with Divine Favor. And now, we have the only secret-related card in the set, another Murloc Hydrologist. It's really cute. Battlecry, discover a secret on a 2-mana 2/2. Those stats aren't amazing, and they're a little bit better on a Murloc because of buffs. Murloc Knight and Anyfin may be gone, but Murloc Warn Leader and a few new neutral cards, which I'll discuss later, open the possibility of a less combo-based Murloc deck. Like more of a mid-range Murloc deck. So I'm a dreamer. I can dream. Since you actually put down a decent stats on a few early turns. You also get a free secret, which is pretty cool. Paladin secrets are usually pretty weak, but when the opponent doesn't know what the secret is, you could get a lot of value. For example, returning your Tyrion with a Scapekoto, or taking down a Twilight Drake to 1 HP with Repentance. Or they summon a 4/2 somehow, and you've played Noble Sacrifice, and then Get Down gets this giant value because they didn't expect it, and they're like, oh no! So, yeah, it's comparable to Dark Peddler and Warlock, which is great, so this card is bound to be pretty good. And last but not least, Lost in the Jungle. 1 mana, summon 2 1/1 Silverhand Recruits. It's similar in power to Alley Cat, or a less variable Living Roots, both cards being okay, so this should be okay. It combos with Lightfuse Stegodon, but it's weak to Maelstrom even on turn 1, and you don't really have many good plays with this card on turn 3. You can do it with Hero Power for a worse muster for battle, but if they've saved their Maelstrom, like if this Paladin build becomes common, expect people to play around it, and then it's suddenly not as good. Yeah. I expect to see it run with Sunkeeper Tarim, though, because there's a lot of value to be had there. I mean, you either buff it 2/2 twice, and Sunkeeper Tarim is basically a Quartermaster with 2 more HP and Taunt, or you just use this to trade into literally anything, free board clear, if they stick around. That's good. So, yeah. Final thoughts on Paladin. This class hasn't really had an identity outside of Anyfin builds for some time, and with the loss of cards like Anyfin Can Happen, Keeper of Uldamon, and Solemn Vigil, Paladin has lost a lot of utility. Right now, the quest, with its insane reward, seems like the best shot at breathing new life into Paladin. Spike Ridge Steed and Adaptation, along with old buffs, might be enough to consistently get out your OTK Dinosaur, but it might be too slow versus really fast aggressive decks like Pirate Warrior, since you're spending a lot of your early mana just buffing a dude, and he'll ignore it and go face, and Also, Murloc/Finja Paladin might be pretty decent with the new Murlocs, even without Anyfin. That's also something to consider. Plus, there's some aggro builds that might work out. I personally want to try a silly meme deck. You play aggro Paladin, and the new Hemet Legendary, which I'll talk about in neutral because it's cool, and you set up guaranteed giant Holy Wraths, but that's for another time. And now, Priest. The Priest quest, being the first one revealed, Awaken the Makers, brought a lot of hype towards the new expansion, because this quest is pretty fun, and also provides another Reno-esque card to the meta. But it's not available to every class, which was smart from Blizzard, unlike Reno. Awaken the Makers. If you summon 7 Death Rattle minions, note that it says summon, not play, you get Amara, Warden of Hope. She is a 5-mana 8/8. 5-mana 8/8, this time with Taunt. Battlecry, set your hero's health to 40. Now, this grumpy lady is really strong like all quest rewards. This is also the first time you can get over 30 health without armor, so that in itself is pretty cool. But it's also a complete slap in the face to aggressive decks. I like it, and I think they can get this reward consistently versus aggro. Plus, there's a lot of new taunts aimed at stopping Pirate Warrior's rampage. Plus, while other quests have an insane board state after completing their objective, you think Priest would fall behind. But not really, because you can play N'Zoth in perfect synergy with this deck to throw down this really threatening board like later than turn 10, to possibly compete with Raptors or Jade. Plus, 40 health and thick taunts might be the only defense strong enough to withstand Time Warp combos. We'll see, but I'm hopeful. Next up, Lyra the Sun Shard, the Elemental Legendary for Priest. You can see it right here. It's a 5-mana 3/5. Whenever you cast a spell, and add a random Priest spell to your hand. It's pretty weak in stats, but that effect is an in-house lock and load. When you cast a spell, get a class spell. If the class spell is cheap, play the class spell. Get a class spell. It seems good, but most of the neutral elemental cards look to be aiming for a consistent mid-range curve. And this isn't really a thing you play on curve. This is a thing that you save up all your spells and do this giant spell combo. So I'm curious to see what people come up with. As for now, it's cool, but I'm not convinced it will be good. Or if it is used, it's not going to be in an elemental priest deck, it's going to be used in a Lyra priest deck, which might be a little more gimmicky. And next, a very odd card, Curious Glimmer Root. It is a 3-mana 3/3 Battlecry. Look at 3 cards. Guess which one started in your opponent's deck to get a copy of it. Unlike Draconid Operative, this is not a Discover. You really only have one choice of card, you just have to answer a little quiz to get it. For the most part, the choice should be obvious. Like, let's say the opponent is running, like, a Druid, and you see Moonfire, Feral Rage, and Naturalize. It's probably going to be Feral Rage. Naturalize if they're a Mill Druid, but at that point you might know if it's a Mill Druid or not, because, you know, look for the Doomsayer. Anyway, I like it. A 3/3 that draws a card is pretty strong on 3, and a card from your opponent's deck might be something that you couldn't run yourself, and there could be some interesting combinations, and it rewards knowledge of the meta. But it's not amazing, it's only pretty good. A brief note, this quiz might actually be really hard in Arena. Shadow Visions now. A 2-mana spell that discovers a copy of a spell in your deck. This card heavily rewards knowing how many spells remain in your deck, and it might be useful in a deck with only a few spells in it to, like, draw extra copies of very specific things. It makes it hard to play around, and it rewards, well, owning Deck Tracker. But beyond the mental game, this card doesn't seem very good to me. Disguised Toast made a very situational combo about it. I'll put a link to that video in the description. But I doubt the spell will be great. Maybe just okay. And okay won't cut it in Constructed. You need some cheese. And I'm not talking about, like, the very situational cheese, like the one Disguised Toast did in his video. Once again, I'll put a link in the description. And now, a new card. A Priest 1-drop. And that's pretty rare. Crystalline, one of those, Oracle. Think of it as Web Spinner, but instead of a beast, it gives you a card the opponent put in their deck, which is usually better than a beast. Plus, it sets up both the quest and elemental effects. It's just good. It's 1 mana, draw a good card, and yeah, I see it being run in both quest and elemental priest decks. It's just a really solid card. Speaking of solid, Amber. Ha ha! Anyway, Free from Amber is a cool spell that lets you discover a minion that costs 8 or more, then you summon it immediately. Now this card is so cool, but I'm not actually sure if it's good. I know people got really hyped for it at the beginning, but I'm not sure if it's as good as people thought it was. Summoning a huge minion for a few mana less is nice, but a lot of those minions will lose their battle cry, or they won't synergize with your deck. I'm thinking like you get Malygos in a spell light deck, or Medivh without his staff battle cry. However, speaking of Medivh, if you play Medivh and then you play this card, you get a ton of value. Plus you could pull out minions like Deathwing or the new charged Devilsaur, and avoid their negative battle cries. However, that's not consistent. I would have to see this in action before saying more, but it could be good, or it could be bad. I don't know. I think it'll be like kind of average, and average isn't enough for Constructed. I'm going out of order for a bit, and you'll see why, as I gush over how much I like Tortolan Shellraiser. Let's scroll down a bit. There we go. It's not the most broken card by any means, but it does so many things decently. It's a 2/6 taunt for 4, Death Rattle. Give a random friendly minion +1/+1. You get the stats on a delay, but that's essentially a 3/7 taunt for 4. Or a 3/7 for 4, 6 of the health being taunt, which, the stats are strong. Also gives you a taunt Death Rattle, which gives N'Zoth something fun to summon. Previously you had to run Infested Tauren to get taunts. And unlike the now wildcard Dark Cultist, this minion protects your second minion to ensure that the buff effect will go off. That's pretty cool. It also progresses the quest, and it does well versus aggro, helping you not to get run over as you attempt to complete it. It's also a great pull off Barnes, because summon minions also complete the quest, and Barnes will definitely get the buff, because this has taunt. The downside is that strong minions will run this thing over. A 6/6 versus this card is absolutely free for the 6/6. I still like it, though. It's a pretty good card. And it combos with Mirage Caller. Now you see what I did with the order. It's a 3-mana 2/3, Battlecry, make a 1/1 copy of a friendly minion. This card is great, not because of its stats, which are, pretty weak, but because of its synergy with the set's other cards. Tortolan Shellraiser and Crystalline Oracle make great copies. Plus there is some potential to copy Lyra the Sun Shard, and or the other class elemental, which you can see right here. I'll talk about that in a second, to generate a ton of spells. If you're a nut, there's also synergy with Silence Priest. Hey, look, it's another eerie statue. Purify, free win, yeah! Or technically the new card that's kind of like eerie statue because it can't attack. But yeah, you'll see. I'm kidding. Purify Priest is really, really bad. But this card has the potential to be a staple of Quest Priest, since it means more death rattles, despite competing for the 3-drop slot with other very strong cards, like the previously mentioned Curious Glimmer Root, or Cabal Talon Priest, which is literally always a good card. Next up is Flash Heal's more attractive cousin, Binding Heal. It heals yourself and a minion by 5. Excellent versus aggro, but unlike Flash Heal, it can't be used as part of a Prophet Velen OTK. Still, it's a nice card to have, since Flash Heal is heading to Wild, so you need something like this. You might need something like this. The quest reward seems pretty good for healing. But yeah, it's a card. If aggro is really, really good and rampant in the meta, you'll use it. If it's not, you probably won't. And finally, a card I might have wanted to mention earlier, Radiant Elemental. It is essentially a Sorcerer's Apprentice for Priest. 2 mana, 2/3 Elemental. On turn 2, you play it, and you can play Power Word Shield on it, buff it with Cabal Talon Priest on turn 3, and it's a 2/8, and you sit pretty on spell discounts until they throw 8 damage into it. That's kind of cool. Also, instead of playing it on curve, you could save it for Lyra the Sun Shard for these giant lock and load style combos. And it makes Shadow Visions a little bit better, because if it costs 1, you're not really paying too much to get more cards. And it's an elemental, so it can set up a bunch of elemental effects. You had better believe this will be used in Elemental Priest decks, and maybe other currently undiscovered builds. Quest Priest? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be in Quest Priest. Final thoughts on Priest. Currently, the only viable Priest is Dragon Priest, which is losing so many cards. The deck might as well not exist in Standard anymore. Plus, a bunch of B-tier utility cards are leaving, like Entomb, Excavated Evil, and Flash Heal. So Priest needs some help from new cards to stay relevant at all. Quest Priest is the buff for N'Zoth Priest that I've wanted to see for a while, and it will bring some form of Control Priest back into the meta, I think. I'm not sure how it will compete with Jade Druid, but it seems like it can hold its own versus aggression really well. Elemental Priest also has some potential, but whether it'll be a mid-range deck or use specific combos with Lyra the Sun Shard, we'll have to find out, though my guess is the former. So, the next class and final one of this video is Rogue. One of the most unique class identities in Hearthstone, the new cards do nothing but help that, as they're all about spells, combo, poison, and reusing cards. Let's start off with the quest, The Caverns Below. It's a weird one. If you play 4 minions with the same name, you are rewarded with the Crystal Core, which I have right here. A 5-mana spell. For the rest of the game, your minions are 5/5. Now, from what I've read, here's how the card should work. Every minion in your hand, deck, and field becomes a 5/5 after this card is played. So if you have a board of little dudes, it's honestly not a dead turn when you play it. It's more like a souped-up Bloodlust. Once the core is played, spawned and transformed minions will become 5/5 as well. This includes stuff like your minions getting hexed. It will still be 5/5. And stuff like Violet Teacher. Violet Teacher, I think, will be great in a deck like this. After minions on the field are 5/5, they can be buffed and damaged as normal. I think Van Cleef's buffs will happen after he becomes a 5/5, but I'm not that sure. Blizzard's pretty inconsistent with how text and effects work. So, yeah. Anyway, if you just play a ton of cycle minions, or something from the deck, examples being Novice Engineer or Pirate plus Patches, you can play these giant boards of 5/5s for very little mana. And the requirement isn't too difficult, considering you have a Shadow Step, Youthful Brewmaster, Shadowcaster, Gadgets and Ferryman, and multiple neutral cards to generate Flame Elemental tokens. And they're all technically the same name, so, Yeah, plus there is Thistle Tea and the new Mimic Pod. But those seem less good to me, for reasons I'll explain. Either way, I love the concept, and this will be the first deck I try out when the new expansion hits. Next up is the legendary Sheridan Corpse Flower. Stupid looking face for such a cool name. Anyway, the legendary support Miracle Rogue didn't know they wanted. And I'm still not sure if they want it. 5/3 for 4 is relatively weak, and the death rattle is Go Dormant. Play 4 cards in a turn to revive this minion. So, basically, it will stay around as this little seed thing. When you play 4 cards in a turn, it turns back into this. Now, there's a few things I don't know. Like, for example, will he have charge, or will he have to sit around for a turn before he does anything? If he has to sit around, he's significantly worse. If he has charge, he's significantly better. So, I don't know if, like, obviously it doesn't say charge on the card, but I don't know if the seed counts as it already being out on the field. You know what I mean. So, yeah. If you get him to come back, like, 2 or 3 times, you get value from this thing. And with Tomb Pillager leaving Miracle Rogue, and Standard altogether, another thing to play on turn 4 is definitely appreciated, because there's going to be a gap there. He'll definitely be in a different kind of Miracle Rogue, as questing / conceal doesn't really work without conceal. But Sheridan has his own support, including the Razor Petal cards, which I'm going to talk about right now. Razor Petal Lasher and Razor Petal Volley. Blizzard stuck in a new theme for rogue cards during the Facebook image dump, and they never said a single word about these during the reveal stream. It's honestly a really cool idea. One card that counts as multiple spells, which has a lot of synergy with Violet Teacher, Gadgetzan Auctioneer, but there's a bit of a problem. These cards cost too much! Okay, so Razor Petal Lasher is a 2/2 for 2. Battlecry, add a Razor Petal to your hand that deals 1 damage. Razor Petal Volley is a 2-mana spell that does nothing except add 2 Razor Petals to your hand, each dealing 1 damage. Now the Razor Petal, I thought they were 0-mana spells. They are 1-mana spells with the text deal 1 damage. So let's put it in perspective. You spent 4 mana on 2 pings, or you played essentially a class-specific Ironforge Rifleman. I understand the potential of broken spell combos, and I understand how that's scary to a Blizzard developer, but come on. I guess Razor Petal Volley could be used in Malygos Rogue, since you could run one of these instead of 2 spells and save on deck space, but Emperor Thorsan's leaving, and you really want these petals discounted. Honestly, I think each Razor Petal could have dealt 2 damage, and these cards would still be relatively tame. As it is, these guys are horrible. Such a cool idea, too. Opportunity lost. So, bad plants out of the way. Let's get back to the good plants, starting with Biteweed. Biteweed is a 2-mana 1/1 combo. Gain 1/1 for each other card that you've played this turn. So, basically, we have a little Van Cleef. Van Leaf, I think the description says. The flavor text. And with the muted effect compared to the original, it doesn't seem unbalanced. At early turns, whereas like Backstab, Prep, Fan into Cleef would make a turn 3 8/8, this would only be a 4/4. So, without the Dream, it's pretty weak on early turns. Still, after an okay gadget turn later on, you could throw down like a 5/5 as an afterthought, and that's pretty cool. Its main rival is Questing Adventurer, and now that Conceal's gone, Questing is only guaranteed 1 turn of buffs before someone throws spells at it. Before, it was just straight up better. From that perspective, Biteweed costs less for around the same power, but it's significantly more restricted on when it can boost. If it's around for a turn, it can no longer boost, whereas Questing Adventurer can. But 1 less mana enables a lot more combos. I don't think it's strong enough in the current Miracle builds, but since they're bound to change anyway, maybe this little guy makes the cut. Who knows? Next is the plant that I'm really excited for, Vile Spine Slayer. It's a 5-mana 3/4 combo, destroy a minion. From a raw value standpoint, this card is great. It is the same cost as Assassinate, plus a 3/4 body, which is normally considered a 3 mana worth body, and it's entirely free! But you do have to play something else on that turn, so rogue players will have to conserve spells to make sure this effect goes off when you need it. I think it's really strong, but for what build it fits in, I have no clue. I'm probably not using it in Quest Rogue, and Miracle Rogue's still finding out what it's going to do after all the changes. I don't know what I'd use this in. Maybe there's some sort of mid-range rogue that doesn't exist? Who knows? We'll definitely see it somewhere, though, and it will be all over Arena. Well, no it won't, because it's an epic. Moving on. In Venom Weapon. Oh, let's go up. It's a 3-mana spell, give your weapon poisonous. Deadly Poison's big brother. So this, plus a hero power, is 2 Assassinates for the price of 1. And a lot of your health. This card seems cool, and depending on how hard other decks pressure Rogue, we might see a lot or next to none of this card. The value is nice, but I'm a bit squeamish throwing my face into giant minions, considering how much Aggro Warrior and Shaman I've played in the past few months. And now, Mimic Pod. Technically a 3-mana draw 2 spell, you draw a card and make a copy of it. For the quest, that means if you draw a cheap minion, you're 1 step closer to the Crystal Core. If you draw a spell or a large minion, it might help long-term or for spell combos, but it doesn't really do what you wanted it to if you were aiming for the crystal core. So there's a lot of randomness based in this card. While this card is made for the quest, I could see one copy going in Miracle Rogue for larger spell combos, because there's a lot of spells in Miracle Rogue. And 2 cards for 3 mana is a lot better cost-wise than Thistletea, which wasn't played, but this might be. It's alright, but it comes down to luck whether it gives you the right card or not. How consistent can it be in the right deck? Only time will tell. And next we have Obsidian Shard. Everyone was betting that Rogue would not get a weapon, because they haven't gotten a weapon in a while. Here's your weapon. It's Burgle Rogue support. The support no one really wanted or cared about. Especially because Burgle's leaving. Like, Burgle Rogue minus Burgle. So 4 mana for a 3/3 weapon isn't completely awful. Especially considering Assassin's Blade is 3/4 for 5. So, like, cost-wise, it's not bad. However, it gets actually good if the cost goes down. If it goes down by 1, it's a 3/3 weapon for 3. If the cost goes down by 2, it is a better Fiery War Axe, which is kind of amazing. The thing about Fiery War Axe is you want to use it on turn 2. Rogue likes using their hero power on turn 2, and you would rarely get enough discounts to make this a 3 cost on turn 3, plus you'd still have a weapon around that you'd want to swing. So, it seems like once you finally get this card cheap and valuable, it'll be way too late. Still, even at the wrong time in the game, a 0 mana 3/3 weapon is pretty alright. Oh, and in Rogue Mirrors, this card will never be discounted, and you'll feel like a damn fool for including it in your deck. I don't see this card bringing Burgle Rogue into popularity anytime soon, and it's almost unusable outside of that. However, the next card, Hallucination, is more along what I expected. A 1 mana spell that discovers a card from the opponent's class. This not only supports Burgle Rogue, but it might even be better for other decks, as it helps out Sheridan decks, traditional Miracle decks, it's fodder for Violet Teacher, all sorts of things Rogue would enjoy. Since it's Discover, you have a lot of options. Either you get a cheap spell to continue your spell combos, or a large high-value card to impact the board or refill your hand. You could get Sprint, you could get Backstab, you could get Prep. You have... if you're fighting against a rogue, you have a lot of options. Discover a card from your opponent's class even means you could get an Antonidas. And if Rogue gets Antonidas, the world is over as we know it. So, I see this being played in most Rogue decks. It's just that good. Final thoughts on Rogue. With Tomb Pillager, Azure Drake, and Conceal leaving in 2 days, Miracle Rogue as we know it took a pretty big hit. And these cards are going to try and fill the gap. And I don't mean those Razor Petal things. I mean Hallucinate, Sheridan, Mini Cleaf. The lack of Brand and Unearthed Raptor means Shadowcaster decks, N'Zoth decks, and a lot of those fringe Rogue builds might fall off the map entirely. Burgle Rogue got some support, but I'm like, yeah, it did lose Burgle. I doubt it'll make that. It was an awkward RNG-based, albeit really fun deck, and it lost some cards and it gained a few more cards than it lost, but it'll still be bad. Like, I can guarantee it'll still be bad. However, Crystal Core, that is where the money is. That is a ton of potential, depending on how fast you can get to the core, and how much your small minions can abuse the buffs. And I think there is a build that does both very efficiently. There's also Water Rogue, the Finja/Stealth/Curator sometimes aggressive deck that's flooded the ladder seemingly from nowhere recently. That might still be around. Like, I can't think of too many cards that have left that, and they never really ran Tomb Pillager too consistently, so you can make do without it. Rogue, as always, has some potential, but it might take a while to optimize. I'm looking forward to trying out the quest deck for myself. So, that is the second trio of classes. In the next video, last of the class videos, I will finish off the class cards with the 3 classes we've seen a ton of on ladder: Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior. Bye for now.